Hey everyone, this is James bringing you another video review. Today I am going to be talking about the new Shudder documentary, or I think it's Shudder at least, that's certainly where I watched it, Dario Argento, Panico. And so it's very rare on this show, of course, to get an opportunity to talk about more contemporary films, just because we're talking about a lot of stuff in the past. So I had to, couldn't pass it up as far as like just something to talk about, so I ended up watching that in the middle of the night, taking care of her newborn. But it was, quite, it's an interesting documentary. It's done by this guy, Simone Scafidi, who did the Fulci for Fake, which is a very interesting and definitely a lot more atypical documentary. If you could even call that, in 2019, I think is when that was released. I enjoyed that one as well. I enjoyed this one too. Dario Argento, unsurprisingly, is definitely one of my own favorite directors, definitely in the top handful. And that film run from basically Deep Red all the way through Tenebrae, so Deep Red, Suspiria, Inferno, and Tenebrae, those are probably four of my top 50 or 100 films right there. So that run alone, and then you just add in the Annabelle trilogy, Phenomena, Opera, and you know, I think his 90s run is not as good, of course, but is a little underrated. So he's one of my favorites. So I'm perfectly willing to kind of lap up a lot of the fan material here. So this is one of those that, you know, it's a shortish documentary. I think it's about 100 minutes or long. I'm happy they made it. As a fan, I was satisfied. You know, that being said, I don't know that it covered too much new material. Probably the most new material is just kind of seeing a lot of his different family members, specifically a lot of women in his life. So we get to see his ex-wife, who I don't think I've seen interviewed before. Argento, of course, is available. His sister is a little unique as well. And you also get to hear him talk a bit about not only his father, who of course is the film producer, and extremely influential in terms of getting him there, but his mom, who was a photographer specializing specifically in kind of women, and so she really kind of, actually I forget if she was a photographer or if she did like makeup, but anyways, him having kind of backstage access to a lot of different models and stuff like that, sounds like it was very, very influential in terms of like kind of getting him to a place where he could photograph them in like a really unique and interesting way. And you know, Argento, if nothing else, is an incredible visual filmmaker, and so I think it's interesting to hear a little bit about that. So again, it's a little bit of new material, but I don't think this is exactly kind of breaking a ton of new ground. I mean, Argento has been around and been famous for a long time, so to really get into kind of the nitty-gritty, I think you would have to really specialize and kind of hone in on a specific topic, or just get kind of crazy access, or make something really long. So something that's like 100 minutes long that kind of interviews a lot of the familiar faces. You know, you're just not going to cover that much new ground. So again, I'm glad they made it. I enjoyed the documentary. I think it's a nice time, especially for people that like Argento. But I think if you're looking for something that's going to uncover some secret truth, it's just like if you're going to cover his whole career in something like 100 minutes, you're just not going to get that. Even the films that I really like, which are generally considered kind of the Argento classics, those are not even, those are covered a little bit, more certainly than his later material. But still, it's not like they go into super great depth. So I can't say I learned a lot from those. Let's see, what else do I have here? Another takeaway too is that, and I've heard other people make this point too, that Argento in the end seems fairly normal. He's definitely kind of comes across as a bit of a family man. His kind of close familial relations with his father and his mother, how they would get together for Sunday lunches, as Argento describes it, as that kind of a typical bougie family. Kind of interesting insights into that. And how he basically was one of the, sounds like the kind of primary caretaker of their two daughters. So Fior Argento, who was interviewed, and who I think you're going to see give a lot less interviews than Argento, who of course is famous and actor, director as well. The other kind of arm in the documentary is the different kind of influences and people that he's both worked with, as well as different directors that are fans of him. So you have people like Suavi and Lamberto Bava. Suavi is a great director. Lamberto Bava, I think, is I like Lamberto. He's nowhere near close to the caliber of Argento or his father, but I think he's solid. So you get to hear them talk a bit about him too. Of course, they've talked about it a lot in the past. In fact, Swaby's even done an Argento documentary himself. But you also get to hear people like Refn, the Danish filmmaker, Del Toro, and Gaspar Noé all talk about that. Del Toro in particular is a good one. He talks about how everything in an Argento film is trying to kill you. Refn describes him as a cocaine director, which immediately brought me back to kind of watching some of the special features about Enzo Castellari in Heroin Busters, who was extremely insistent that he never touched any of the hard drugs or didn't do drugs at all, so much so that I became quite suspicious that he might. Anyways, that's a tangent right there. But I totally get what Refn's talking about, of how there's just like this incredible, manic, almost otherworldly energy to him. They talk a bit, I forget who commented that they're kind of adult fairy tales. It would have been suitable if Del Toro did that, because that's basically what Del Toro makes at times. And it kind of, and they just talk about how his world building and how he's able to create these kind of like unique cinematic things that aren't necessarily grounded in reality, and that just kind of makes him just one of the more incredible and different and unique kind of horror auteurs, and just an incredible visual director as well. So I just enjoy hearing that stuff up, so you're kind of lapping it up as a fan. So yeah, again, it's a nice time. I can't say I really learned that much, but I think if you are an Argento fan, I think it's probably something that you would certainly enjoy, just because it gives pretty good fan service, especially if you're familiar with it. You're not going to get to go super in depth in anything, but still, yeah, a fun watch. So thank you to the folks over at Shudder for making this available. It's nice to just be able to hear from kind of these old filmmakers. I mean, Argento is into his 80s at this point. It sounds like he's still planning on working, and I enjoy Dark Glasses, so I'm happy to watch anything that the man produces, and hopefully it is more Dark Glasses than is Dracula, which I found to be completely awful. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I will see you all next time.